All right, here are the solutions to your final review. So this first one, we have an x squared, so that's a parabola shape. And then this says a is less than 0. So any number that's less than 0 is negative. So this is really a negative x squared, which looks like this. Then we have this one, a over x, that's a boomerang shape. And now we have a is greater than 0, so it's positive. So positives always go on the top right. Those are our boomerang shapes. This one, we have ax cubed, that's an S shape. And then this says a is less than 0, so really we have a negative x cubed, which will look like this. It's not positive, so there's nothing up here. And then the last one, we have a over x squared. That's a tree trunk, and then a is greater than 0. That goes here. Okay, now this next page, it's got somewhat of a typo. So instead of having this graph, just move it out here, and then we can match. So we have two S-shaped graphs. This one is wider. So when you are dealing with graphs and functions that are not fractions, so in this case, these two are not fractions, the bigger the number is out front, the bigger the a value, the skinnier the graph. So 2 is bigger than 0.5, so it'll go with this skinnier graph here. So here's a, which means d is this one. And then these ones, it's the opposite. So if you have a fraction, the bigger the number, the further away from your origin your graph gets. So this has a 5, so that's the further away. So this one would be B, and the last one would be C. Now it's asking us to factor. So two numbers that multiply to 10 and add to 7. So multiply to 10 and add to 7. So if you're not sure, you can write out factors. So 1 and 10, 2 and 5, and that's it. And then these ones actually add to 7, so you have x plus 2 and x plus 5. This one, there's 1x squared, there's 0x plus 64. So you need two numbers that multiply to 64 and add to 0. So it's not 8 and 8, because that would give you 16. And it's not positive 8, negative 8, because that would give you a negative 64. So this one is prime. If you can't factor, it's called prime. So now we need two numbers that multiply to a positive 20, but add to a negative 9. So that means both numbers have to be negative. So you could have negative 1, negative 20, negative 2, negative 10, negative 4, negative 5. And this is our answer. So x minus 4 and x minus 5. Okay, then we have this one. So we need two numbers that multiply to a negative 24 and add to a positive 5. So this one, if you write your factors, you have 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. But they have to multiply to a negative 24. So that means one of the numbers has to be negative. But it could be the other number. So you actually have all sorts of factors. So if you're looking at these, which ones are going to add to a negative 5, 3, and negative 8, and you'll have a calculator so you can check those. Okay, then we have this one. So this one, they both have an x in them. So we know that we're going to be factoring out a greatest common factor. So what's the biggest number goes into 3 and 12? Well, that's 3. They both have an x, so we can take an x out. Then what you're really doing is you're taking this whole thing divided by 3x, and whatever is left goes on the inside. So 3x squared divided by 3x is x. 12x divided by 3x is 4. And then we'll do the same thing here. The biggest number that goes into 4 and 2 is 2. They both have an x. You divide, so you're left with 2x. Then you have this minus sign. And then 2x divided by 2x is just 1. So this one says list the domain and range for each function below, write as both an inequality and an interval notation. So we'll do inequalities first. So domain is talking about your x values. So let's actually just assume that these are arrows on the end here. So our smallest x value with this arrow is going to keep going this way. So our smallest x value is negative infinity. And then where does it end? Well, that's going all the way to positive infinity. But in inequalities, you cannot have infinities in your inequalities. So if you're going from negative infinity to infinity, you really just have all real numbers. So you can get rid of that. Okay, then our range. So what's our smallest y value? Looks like it's at -5. So we have -5 less than or equal to, because it looks like it's equal to x. And then our biggest y value, this is going to keep going. So it's at a positive infinity. And you can never equal infinity. So that's why you don't have the equal sign. But remember, you don't ever have an infinity in your inequality. And this x has to be written first. So you have to flip it around. So x is greater than or equal to -5. Get rid of that. If we wanted to write this as a interval notation, it's going from negative infinity to infinity. So negative infinity to infinity. And that was your domain. And then our range was going from -5 to infinity. So -5 to infinity. That was our range. And then I'm using a square bracket here because you had the equal sign. Okay, this one, it's kind of hard to see. So let's see, in domain, our inequality, it looks like our smallest x value is -5. And it's going all the way to 8, nope, 7. So less than or equal to x, less than or equal to 7. Our range, our smallest y value is -9. Less than or equal. Oh, and then I actually made a mistake over here. Range, remember it's y, not x. Sorry, so this should be a y. And then over here, you have a y for your range is less than or equal to, and then our highest y value is a +9. And if you wanted to write this in interval notation, you would just have -5, comma 7, and they're both equal to, because you have filled in circles, so you have brackets. And our range is -9 to 9 with square brackets as well. Make a table and graph that represents a function. So a function, we could do 1, 2, 3, and then you could do 5, 6, 7. There's a table, a graph. You could do anything like this, as long as these x values are all different and this graph passes your vertical line test, which it does. So now it says make a table and graph that does not represent a function. So here's x, we can do 1, 1, 2, and then 3, 4, 5. Since this has 2 1s, it is not a function. And then here, I could do this is not a function, because if I do my vertical line test, it hits here and it hits here. Okay, this one says evaluate the following. So we have f of x equals 4x minus 2 and g of x equals 3x minus 3. So if x, or find x if f of x equals 2. So if f of x equals 2, that means this, instead of writing f of x, we can write a 2. So you'll have 2 equals 4x minus 2. Add 2 to both sides. We get 4 equals 4x, divide by 4, and you get x equals 1. Then over here it says find x if g of x equals 12. So instead of putting g of x here, we can put a 12. So we have 12 equals 3x minus 3. You're going to add 3 to both sides. You get 15 equals 3x. Divide both sides by 3. And you get x equals 5. And then find f of 3. So this 3 is an x value. So we're going to take this 3 and plug it in for x in the f of x function. So you'll have 4 times 3 minus 2. 4 times 3 is 12, minus 2 is 10. Same thing, but now we're taking 3 and we're plugging it into g of x. So you have 3 times 3 minus 3. So you have 9 minus 3 equals 6. Okay, now we are looking at a graph. So f of 2, that is an x value. So you go to your x-axis, you go to 2, and you go up to wherever the graph is. And that looks like it's at about 3.5. F of 4, this is also an x value. So you go over to 4, you go up to your graph, that's at about 5. You go over to your y-axis. Then it says find x when f of x equals 0. So f of x is 0, so that means your y equals 0. So we have an answer here, 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 and here. So this is at about 0.75. This is at about 2.25. This is at about 3.5, and this is at about 4.5. Okay, and then the last thing that's on your final, I'm just going to make some stuff up here. So let's say we are comparing, I don't care, heights and weights. So if you, let's do height here, and we'll do weight here. So I'm just going to put in a few numbers. So let's do this in inches. So let's do 60 inches, 50 inches, 40 inches, and 52 inches. And then if you're 60 inches, let's say you weigh 150 pounds. If you're 50 inches, somebody weighs 140. If you're 40 inches tall, you weigh, I don't know, 100. And if you're 52 inches tall, let's just say that they weigh 115. Okay, so if you want to find your R value, get your calculator, you click stat, you hit enter for edit, and then you type these numbers in. So to delete, you hit this delete button. I'm going to delete all of these. So you have 60, 50, 40, and 52. And then we have 150, 140, 100, and 115. So to find the R value, hit stat, you go to calculate, go down to lin reg, enter, 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 enter. Okay, so our R value is 0.8, I'm going to round 5. Then we can write our y equals equation. So here it says y equals ax plus b. So instead of putting an a, we can put this 2.3 because that's what a equals, or 2.4, I'll round. So 2.4x plus b, which is 7.5. Okay, so we have our R value, we have our linear regression equation. So let's talk about this. So it's positive. And then we need to decide if it's weak, moderate, or strong. Since this is pretty dang close to 1, we know it's strong. Okay, then we need to interpret our slope. Okay, so first of all, our slope is this number right here, 2.4. And you are going to write this the same every single time. So we are going to write as our x value. So x is height. So as height increases by 1, that's always going to increase by 1. Our weight goes up, your slope. So 2.4 pounds. That's our interpreting our slope. Then we can interpret our y-intercept. So our y-intercept is 7.5. So this one you're always going to write as your x is 0. So if you're, oh, that's not what I want to write. When your height is 0. So when height is 0, your weight is your y-intercept, which is 7.5 pounds. And then the last question, let's just say if I am, we'll go with somebody tall, 70 inches tall, how much do I weigh? So 70 inches tall, so that's a height, so that's an x value. So I take this 70 and I take it and I put it in for this x value here. So you have y equals 2.4 times 70 plus 7.5. So if I type that into my calculator, 2.4 times 70 plus 7.5, I get 175.5. And that is all you have for your review.